Welcome to the WARC Podcast. My name's David Tiltman, and today we are joined by educator and columnist Mark Ritson. Now, look, regular listeners of the podcast will be familiar with Mark's work. He's spent his career championing evidence-based marketing, interpreting theory, and gleefully eviscerating marketing's fixation with the latest fads. Mark spent 25 years teaching on MBA programs at leading business schools, and in 2016 he became the founder of his own mini MBA program. We're recording this at Cannes Lions, making this Mark's third appearance at the festival. We found he's perhaps the only marketing expert who can repeatedly roast his audience and still have them clap for him. Mark brings clarity, rigor, and just enough profanity to keep things interesting, so don't say you haven't been warned. In the podcast, we'll be discussing his latest Cannes session alongside Byron Sharp, the gap between theory and practice, and much more besides. But before we talk to Mark, here's a quick message from today's sponsor.
If you're listening to the WARC Podcast, you're already tuned into what's defining the future of marketing. And there's never been a better time to land your own thought leadership in partnership with Lions Advisory. Lions Advisory works with your brand to craft evidence-led narratives that capture the attention of the industry, all built on decades of expertise you can trust. From WARC, Contagious, FE, and Cannes Lions. Whether you're looking to launch your own WARC report, own the moment at Cannes Lions, or cut through with podcasts or webinars, Lions Advisory can help you shape the conversation. Get started now at lions.co/thought leadership.
Mark, welcome back to the WARC Podcast.
Hello, David. It's good to see you. We should say this is literally the first thing of the week I've done. I've just jumped out of a car, got my badge, and sat in with you.
Thank you for the time. We appreciate the efforts you've made to get here. Now, listen, I want to start with the talk that you are giving this year, because I say this is your third time here, but this year we wanted to do something a little bit different, and we've put you on stage with Byron Sharp and asked you to find 5 things you agree on.
Yes.
Are there 5 things you agree on?
There definitely are. In fact, there's more than 5. It's quite a surprise. I mean, I think we agree on the potential for sophisticated mass marketing, the power of distinctiveness, the importance of distinctive brand assets. Penetration is indeed a major focus. They're all things I think I subscribe to. The issue is I think it's quite extreme, and I always accuse Ehrenberg Bass of sort of just slightly overcooking their pancakes, in the sense that they just take a very overly dogmatic position. Not, is distinctiveness a very important thing for brands to achieve? It is, and thanks to Ehrenberg Bass, we now know that. It should not come at the expense of good, tight differentiation, if you understand what that means. Ehrenberg Bass' position is very much, don't do any form of differentiation. It's all about distinctiveness. I feel no need to play those extremes.
It's interesting. I was reading, rereading, I should say, How Brands Grow in preparation for the festival, and
as you do.
It's just a standard weekend. Yeah. But what's interesting is, you say they haven't moved much. It's all there in How Brands Grow. Like it's a fully formed sort of system of ideas, and you're very right. Like what he says now is what he said in 2010.
You cannot accuse Ehrenberg Bass of inconsistency. I mean, I think they're almost victim of the other side of it. They're so dogmatic on some points, and to be fair, they probably want to be, and good for them. But yeah, I find that, there's been that, again, if you take targeting, I think they have, refreshed the idea that mass marketing isn't stupid, sophisticated mass marketing. It's just, again, I just think it's foolhardy to say that that's the way you should always play it, when performance marketing and activation clearly benefits from some good micro-targeting as well. Yeah. And I have this, 2-speed approach, which is we drop an atomic bomb on the whole sophisticated mass marketing when we build brands. It isn't just the long of it, it's the mass of it as well, and it's emotional, and it's top of funnel and all of that. But we also then, the short of it and performance is also targeted. You're not going to do much of that on the sophisticated mass market. You're obviously going to attack the people who are in a certain place at a certain time with a certain product and a certain activation. Again, I don't see why you can't have both. I'm pretty sure I'm right. Yeah, no, look, there's a general sort of, I think there's a general respect, at least on my side. You'll have to ask Byron, but I think Byron changes by the day, perhaps. Yeah, look, I don't think I've never regarded him as an enemy. Look, I have to be honest. I deliberately positioned Byron certainly emerged much faster and stronger 20 years ago into the environment than I did. And so I applied basic brand management principles and positioned against him for a couple of years. So I think that enemy tag is probably more an accidental endpoint of me actively positioning against Ehrenberg Bass for a while, which worked for me and also was, based on some things I actually still maintain.
Because you have presented before, and there was together before. There was a
We did it
session in 10 years ago.
10 years ago or 9 years ago. We did a thing. It was the Festival of Marketing, and they had a big problem. It was a 3-day thing back then, and on a Friday, it finished Friday at 5 o'clock, and everyone obviously went down the pub at 1 o'clock and started heavy drinking on the Friday. So they were, and the advertisers and sponsors weren't very happy. So they tried to come up with an idea that would keep everyone there till the end. So Byron and I were both approached, and we agreed to a debate on the merits of targeting and stuff. And I actually won the debate, I think, quite clearly. And he definitely had the stronger argument, but that's not the point, is it? But we had a good old Barney, and it was good value, it was a good value. So that got more famous. They didn't film it because they wanted everyone to stay. And because it wasn't filmed, it now sort of, in marketers of a certain age, it lives in this sort of weird memory of there were 3,000 people in the room. People talk about it. It was
Were you there for?
Yeah, did
it's
you
like
remember that
Woodstock
thing?
or something?
And I think they really thought we would be quite convivial. And of course, the thing people don't realize, we both worked at, very top tier universities. When you do a research talk among other academics, you rip the shit out of each other. And afterwards you go and have a beer. It's the opposite of this practitioner stuff where everyone's very concerned with optics. When you do a research talk or a job talk at another business school, you fully expect people to say your research is nonsense, and and that's a respectful thing. I'm trying to falsify your data, right? So there is, so when we both are familiar with that, so we started out that way, and I think a lot of people took it as animosity when instead it's like, no, you want to be critical of ideas, otherwise it gets sloppy. So I think to the non-academic eye, we were going at it. But afterwards, it was very nice, very civil.
So I'd like to talk a little bit on a sort of different note about what we're seeing as sort of the gap between theory and practice. I know you've come at this recently. We in the recent sort of Multiplier Playbook report, we called out this effectiveness say-do gap, but we were seeing more and more people know the theory, but less and less evidence of it being actually put into practice.
Yeah.
And we were trying to sort of highlight the sort of structural and cultural issues that particularly around brand and performance that get in the way.
I thought the multiplier, I mean, this because I asked you and you kindly gave me a copy of it from Mini MBA. I think there was absolutely nothing new in multiplier effect, and it was all the better for it. It was a really brilliant summary, as you say, of kind of what the gap is. If you could take a brand manager and really beautifully present all the stuff that's been built in a really convincing way. That's what that report was. I thought it was a brilliant bit of work. And I don't, to your point though, I don't think it necessarily does it fill the gap. We can only hope so, right?
You recently did some work with Ipsos that looked at what you might say is, I think you would argue, is a sort of absence of education within the marketing profession.
Or an absence of knowledge about
knowledge.
marketing.
Yeah, let's put it that way. So, can you just recap that research for us?
Yeah, Ipsos. I've always had a lot of time for Ipsos. Right, they're the least famous and biggest and most amazing market research operation. So they were doing a big survey of marketers. We got together and I said, could I slip in 10, I would call them sub-undergraduate questions on marketing, stuff that every marketer should pretty much know. What is penetration? What is omni-channel? What is a distinctive brand asset? What are the 4 Ps? What is positioning? And it turns out, what do you know? Approximately 2/3 of marketers don't know those questions, don't know the answers. And we gave them multiple choice. So my Beagle could have got, 2.5 out of 10 right. But most, the average was way down. And then we looked at it and said, well, what's the difference? And the most explanatory variable, what do you know, is have you had any formal training in marketing or not? Now, the formally trained guys didn't whiz the test because some of them had forgotten or whatever. But they were around about, in America, for example, they were around about 4 times more likely to know the answers because they had some training. And the last point I made was, when I published the sort of the insights on LinkedIn, people were like, "Oh, there's this Mark Ritson starting this debate about marketing education." And I'm like, it's not a debate, right? It's not a debate. Only in marketing would a whole succession of idiots frame this as a debate, right? In any other profession, the argument that education in something you do will make you better is a ludicrously obvious argument. We have built a culture of bullshit in this industry. And I hear so much about, marketers need to know finance, the language of the boardroom. Yeah, sure they do. But most of them need to know what marketing is first, what a DBA is. You and I can talk about distinctive brand assets all day long. 65% of the marketers here don't know what they are. That's a problem.
You said that lack of education. Is that a sort of reflection of the changes within marketing over the past couple of decades? One thing I hear, and again, it's just anecdotal, I don't have data to prove it, but one thing I hear is that a lot of marketers come into the profession through sort of non-traditional routes. So maybe they're starting in social or another area.
That's true. We've always been a jackdaw discipline.
Yeah.
You don't get into medicine through joinery, but marketing has tended to be, and I think that's a great thing because it's diversity, right? We get people in from the creative realms, from media, from statistics, from finance sometimes, and that's to the strength of the discipline. The problem is when they get there, they don't feel the need to learn anything about the thing that is on their badge, and that's partly because I think the educational institutions haven't made it particularly easy or good, but it's also because we've got a strong anti-educational propaganda running through this. You'll hear a lot of people say, "Oh, marketing's changed completely since 10 years ago," right? That, of course, that's true, but it's also a way of saying, so therefore, the fact I have no qualifications or training in marketing isn't a weakness because it's completely changed, and it's all about the future now. And I think that for me is naughty because we're a 100-year-old discipline. I'm not saying it's the same as it was 100 years ago, but in order to know where to go, you have to know where you've been. And marketing isn't changing any more now than it was 20, 30, 40 years. We've always been evolving. If you don't know what positioning is, if you don't know what penetration is, if you don't know what, a quantitative research method is, I would argue you're not good enough to do your job. And I'm not saying, for example, you have to believe in penetration as the driving force or believe in the 4 Ps. What I'm saying is, before you disagree with the 4 Ps, do you know what they are?
Yeah.
And 70% of the time, these marketers don't. It's when I present the data, there's gasps because people can't believe.
How has it been received? You've been on tour with this for
We've
the
done
last
all
couple of
5.
months.
We've done 5 countries, right? I did Canada, Oz, UK, US, and somewhere else. We're going to do France, and it's interesting. Really, really good senior marketers are kind of like, your survey's a bit obvious. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, yeah, but 65% of marketers can't pass it. And then in the room, people are genuinely, when you show them the questions and the lack of correct answers, people are amazed. But of course, we have a wide swathe of marketers without any training in marketing that need to rationalize themselves by finding some bizarre reason why training in marketing wouldn't make you better at marketing. You see what I mean? The very thing I'm trying to sort of puncture springs up and says, "Oh, you don't need, that's, typical. It's the survey is wrong," or, Ritson's just trying to sell his program. And like all those things may be true, but it still doesn't take away from the core point, which is A, training in marketing makes you better at marketing, and B, most of us don't have training, and C, most of us don't know anything about marketing in marketing. We keep talking about, how do we get the rest of the organization to take marketing seriously? None of the fuckers in marketing take it seriously, or they go and get a decent short form training in the thing that they've got on their badge. It's not good enough, David. It's just not good enough.
If just sort of changing topic slightly, but still on this gap between theory and practice.
Yeah.
Last year in Cannes, you were presenting on the System 1 FE data, and really talking about. I mean, I sort of paraphrased it as fewer, bigger, longer. And we're looking a lot this year at the whole more with less environment that marketers find themselves in, and the need to make sort of difficult choices, and whether that kind of approach, you're taking fewer but bigger swings, more working capital in behind
Bigger bets, yeah.
bigger bets, whether that's actually playing out. I mean, have you seen any evidence of people putting any of this into practice?
A couple of times. I mean, look, first of all, largely no. I mean, I've been in the game long enough to know that when I was a junior professor, the thing you wanted was just one marketer to read anything you'd ever written and think about it for a second, right? Because we had such little impact upon the field. And whenever someone did that, that became my main MO was, can I get practitioners to pay any attention to academics, let alone whether it would change what they do. I know with whether they were just being nice to me. When Amazon replayed their Christmas ad, The Three Old Girls Coming Down the Hill, I asked a couple of the team, why did you do that? And they said, we saw your talk.
And it's a great ad.
It's a great ad. And what I was showing a couple of years ago and then last year was, that, people aren't getting sick of ads. You look at the system one day, or you look at the other day that's coming out of Kantar and everyone else, wear out isn't really what we thought it was, right? And so the Amazon team said to me, we saw you talk about that. And we thought, well, yeah, we've got this great ad. Let's do it again, right? And I was like, that's what you want to hear.
Yeah.
But that's an anecdotal exception. I think back to Byron and 16 years, you've got to hit the same nail at least 1 million times for it to even go in slightly into this discipline. Partly because, as we've said as well, it's an ignorant discipline. They aren't reading. They aren't really knowledge-based. So yeah, I would be amazed. I mean, you don't take on these impact missions lightly. Do you know what I mean? It's a 20-year gig. Long and the short of it's probably the most notable example of two thinkers saying, right, everyone's going too short term. We're going to double down on this for the next, I think at the time they thought a couple of years.
No, it's been 15 years?
Nearly 50, well, more than a decade for sure. And that's still, as we know, not necessarily, it's had a little impact maybe, right? But the other point that comes in, David, which is interesting is, because people say to me all the time, you're trying to get more discipline and evidence-based marketing in place. And, is it working? And I'm like, well, we're not curing cancer, right? Marketing is a capitalist pursuit. I don't want everyone to be good because otherwise it's harder for the people I work with and for to be successful. You want them to not understand. Do you see what I mean?
I see what you mean. So because everything in marketing is sort of contextual, if everybody becomes better at marketing, it becomes harder to become better at marketing.
It's a competition, Dave. It's a competition, right? So to some degree, you want your teams, your brands to benefit from this, and you want the ignorant idiots to continue in their small bet, non-distinctive, non-emotional, blow my budget on building ads and no working capital. Life gets easier for the rest of us, right? I mean, if you ever look at one of the great literatures on coming out of a recession, P&G have a playbook, which is basically everyone else is going to pull back and we will double down. Yeah. And so there's two movements there, right? There's P&G smarts to go during a recession, you actually want to push the joystick forward. But the reason it works isn't because of the recession. It's because all of your idiot competitors pull back and you buy 3 years of extra share of voice. And for the next decade, you're running the show again, right? So you need the idiots to be idiots as well as the smart people to be smart.
Good news, decades of benchmarking, insights, and best-in-class case studies are now available at the push of a button. Lions Intelligence is the new operating system for creative marketing excellence. With state-of-the-art AI technology and established marketing insights from the WARC, Contagious IQ, and WARC, all in a single adaptive workspace that evolves with your thinking. Save hours of manual work and share your thinking with clarity and confidence. Lions Intelligence is where groundwork becomes great work. Insight, strategy, creativity, execution, all in one place. To learn more, check out intelligence.lions.co.
On that sort of point about fewer, bigger, longer, we're sensing some data in Cannes, comes from CreativeX.
I saw it. You showed it to me. I'm very impressed in a bad way.
And I think what it sort of talks to us is that the sort of modern media environment, or the media environment where we're pushing more money into, is by nature a small platform. Not small in aggregate,
No.
but
It speaks to
it
smallness.
speaks to smallness.
Yes.
So if you don't know what I'm talking about, so some amazing CreativeX data looking at 633,000 ads,
$2 billion worth.
$2 billion, 23 to 25, all blue chip advertisers. So, not the sort of SME stuff that often clouds the picture on these platforms. And yeah, the headline is that 93% of ads on those platforms have under $10,000 in spend.
From the big guys.
From the big guys. In media spend behind them. And so again, it just feels like, are we delegating to the algorithm? Are we sort of going, well, you know what, we'll, rather than testing this stuff, we'll just pump the stuff into the system and see what sticks.
I love the data, and I think it makes a very serious point, because your other bit of data, if I remember, was that the average brand building campaign ad was 40 days long.
Yes.
Right? So what's happening is, I think, go back to the long and the short. One of the big problems with the long and the short, and there's no bigger fan of it than me, is the title was wrong. Yeah. So yeah, it was about long-term brand building versus short-term activation. But in those two camps are many other things. Yeah. There's top of funnel. So just do long. Long is top of funnel. It's emotional. It's targeted to everyone in the category. Yeah. And also it needs to be enduring. The data is very clear. That kind of campaign only really gets its real impact into the second and third year of execution, right? So what you're seeing, I think, is a lot of big brands not getting that disparity. The short stuff should be 30 days long, maybe not even 30 days, right? And it should be targeted, and it should be, hundreds of different things going off. I get that. What we're doing is we're letting the short invade the long. You need that big, broad, enduring tent of emotion, campaign, theme. We're talking campaigns that should last 5 to 10 years, right? Now, albeit with some different creative. We're talking about Specsavers,
Yeah.
We're talking about Cadbury. We're not seeing that because, again, this digital short performance obsession is clouding the vision of brands for longer term stuff. So yeah, I really think the long and the short is still super relevant and having super little impact based on your data.
So I guess the other thing that's playing out then in this space is how AI starts to come into this, both in terms of campaign development, but then also in terms of optimization once things are in flight. What's your, you've been a big advocate of things like synthetic data. What are you sort of seeing in this space? Are you excited by anything, or are we just really still finding out how AI?
It's early days. It's early days, David. But there's a few things going on. I have no interest in synthetic advertising at all. I think because the debate about that is born of an industry that's overly obsessed with advertising. I think one of the few things that isn't going to be massively impacted is the creation of 30-second TVCs using AI. Right? I think it'll be altered slightly, but it's not where the interest or the money or the savings are. Do you know what I mean? You can make a decent ad for pretty much what it would cost you to do a synthetic one. Where it's interesting is, synthetic data is moving at a pace. We're certainly now seeing a point where I think synthetic data is cheaper. I know it's cheaper, it's quicker. It may also be more accurate, because the thing that most people don't realize about consumer research is what an inaccurate thing it is. If I move the question around in the questionnaire, if I ask the question differently, I can get real consumers to give me a 20, 30, 40 point different answer. See what I mean? Synthetic doesn't work that way. So I really am, particularly in B2B, really excited about what that avenue opens up. But really what comes next is that then feeds into strategy and feeds into execution and an always on learning loop. So automated marketing planning, building out of the synthetic data, is where I think we will be going in the next 5 years. And that has, the state of marketing plans, David, they're so poor. The ability to supplant them, replace them completely with AI built optimized plans that then learn as they go, and obviously bolt on to the tactical stuff like pricing and new product development and media buying and so on. That system is something that really excites me.
And that's not just an efficiency play then, that's actually making the work better then?
There's no way, from what I've already seen of some of these prototypes, that any human marketing team could ever get anywhere near the stuff that AI is able to produce. It's not just that you've got a synthetic marketing plan versus a human team building a marketing plan. The synthetic team is building 400 marketing plans and then testing them experimentally to see which one works best. It's not beatable. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's not saving money. That's having a significantly better plan. And what it means is, yeah, we are going to lose marketers. I mean, the industry, you can choose your number. I settle on about 60 to 65% less over the decade or so that comes. And it's already happened.
Sorry, 65% less
marketers.
Mark, you think we will see?
I think our industry will be much smaller. I think much better, but it'll be tough. And it's going to happen in the junior people because they're instantly replaceable by AI. We're seeing that in most big firms now. The senior people are more valuable at this stage and they're not moving. So the real trends in marketing, and I've seen them in all the main countries now, senior marketers aren't moving around. Less jobs are being advertised. Salary levels.
Basically, everything's gumming up a little bit.
It's gumming up. It's the big freeze. And down below, junior people are not being recruited in. So you run that over a decade-long period. It won't happen like COVID. It's like we just lost 20% of the industry. I think you'll just see it gradually, reforming itself. And I think what it leaves us with are marketers that, and again, I'm hugely opposed to training in AI. I think it's a ludicrous concept, right? I use the analogy of a jockey. Lester Piggott is a very famous jockey. Didn't train in how to be a horse. You know what I mean? Didn't run on all fours. You know what I mean?
Well, we don't know.
We don't know that. Fair point. Evidence-based. But the point is that, what is AI? It's not, you don't need to be trained in AI. AI is doing all that. That's your magical horse, the fastest horse that ever run. You need to learn to be a jockey. And so what you need to do is you need to know, back to my earlier point, about marketing, about strategy. One of the great opportunities with synthetic data is to have the AI do it for you. But you need a marketer who knows whether it's a conjoint that they want to synthesize or whether it's but they don't know what the methods are. Literally, most of them don't know the difference in conjoint and ethnography. So I think if we have better, well-rounded marketers, better jockeys attached to these incredible AI horses, we're going to be in a good place. Now, I don't underestimate what that means for junior marketers. I think we will, it is a question now whether you'd recommend to someone in their early 20s to go into marketing, because I think the job prospects are limited. And any senior guy that's lost their job, they're struggling, and I feel for them because it's not through it. It was always a tough job, right? Getting a new marketing role. There's nothing out there because nobody's moving around. The risk of probation and making the wrong jump and then find yourself in a 10-year no man's land. It's scary out there. And I feel for all the people involved, but it doesn't stop it from being, I think, a marketing reality. Salaries will freeze. It's not a buyer's market anymore. And I think we will see a massive change in marketers over this next decade. And again, I go back to what Pete Weinberger, who runs Evidence, always says, this is as bad as AI will ever be, right? We have a 20-year ramp up now of, I don't know how much you use it, but I watch Claude evolving around me and just blowing my socks off. It just gets logarithmically better.
Yeah.
So
AI is one of the big themes here at CAM. The other one is creators. A lot of spend going into creators now. Still early days in terms of the evidence around the creator space. But I know anecdotally, I was speaking with a marketer last night, and they've found that compared with what you might call standard social media advertising, so not all advertising, social media
digital display of the old.
They're finding much better results out of their creator work than they are from more sort of traditional forms of advertising. How are you sort of seeing this space? It does feel like it's here to stay now.
Yeah, it's a new proper tool. As usual, it's being sold as the death of everything else.
Yeah.
We never learned this lesson. The Unilever nonsense earlier in the year. So everything else is dead now, and it's all about creator stuff, right? It's not, but this is a very nice new avenue. The challenge, I think, is probably distinctiveness. One of the things I'm doing this week, I'm doing a talk for TikTok, And it's difficult on TikTok to be distinctive because it's a much more organic media, even the advertising formats. And especially when you're using creators, it drops down to an incredibly low level.
Yeah, we saw data last year from, like, I think it was Kansas. They had data like 27% of ads get correctly attributed.
Sounds about right. So we have challenges there. But yeah, clearly the big brands are getting some value out of it, and it is a breakthrough approach. So yeah, it joins the armory, the ever-growing armory of integrated marketing tools. But we forget the lesson of integration. When radio came along and then TV came up and it was going to kill radio, there's all this stuff in the 1930s or 40s, how now, TV will destroy radio. It never did. We're still listening to radio,
Yeah, exactly. And that integration point's really interesting. Because again, like, it's not a new idea. We've been talking about integration for a very long time.
We have.
But again, could go back to the work we did on the multiplier effect and then the multiplier playbook. Everything comes back to the more you silo this stuff, the worse everything gets.
Because if you summarize it in a nutshell, I mean, I'm doing it, the TikTok thing, I'm showing a TV ad in the middle of my talk. And they're sort of querying it. I'm like, no, what I'm showing is if you take some TV budget and put it into TikTok with the same creative, but with a different edit, you're getting a fantastic halo effect, yeah? But you can take it out of TikTok and put it into TV or vice versa. The formula I've been using since my early days is A times B is always greater than 2A or 2B. And it applies to any media you like. You're always going to get almost always going to get a big boost from diversity, But again, to your point, we've known this, we've proven this, we've talked about this at least since the days of Don Schultz. So we're talking at least 30 years. Most marketers are still, this is the best medium for me. I'm putting my money here, this idea of synergy effects. We're never going to get a perfect impact or any impact at all in some cases.
Final area I want to just sort of talk about is, I guess, this goes a little bit back to you and Byron, but it's the sort of nature of the discourse around this space, particularly the effectiveness space.
Yeah.
I guess this is, again, purely anecdotal, but it's felt to me like there's been a sort of sharpening of the discourse in terms of people are much more combative, and you've got sort of, people trying to make their name on LinkedIn by taking down either you or Byron or somebody else. Is that something you're noticing, that it's getting?
Yeah, it's getting a bit tighter.
It's getting a bit tighter. It's almost like there's a bit of an uncivil war going on.
We're in Europe, right? So we can talk a little bit about rigor, and critical thinking. And it has different meanings, critical thinking, in different parts of the world. But the European tradition of critical thinking is, gloves off. It's about idea. Don't tackle the player, tackle the ball. But I certainly welcome it. I like a good little spanking when I can get one. You know what I mean? But the minute it turns into, well, Ritson's, he's full of shit because he's making money on blah, blah, you can always spot when it's turned into something that isn't critical thinking, right? But the ideas are there to be butchered. You know what I mean? Where it goes wrong is if it ever detracts into, you're this and I'm that and all that. It's like, keep it in the ideas, and I think go for it. It's wonderful part of, if you want to talk about being evidence-based, is my evidence beats your evidence. And that's a fine disciplinary, it's falsificationism. That's how it all should be. You're right. It can degenerate pretty quickly into, other things. Partly that's LinkedIn. Look, it keeps it frothy and interesting. And how do we keep marketers interested? If it's things like me and Byron having a little bit of a tussle, do you know what I mean? Maybe that's good, because on the side, we're still talking about the topic as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, take a point of view between me and him because it's interesting, and then at least we can slide something in there. The thing that we've done, David, that I think we should all be pleased with is, if you go back 20 years to the era of David Archer and Kevin Keller and the big universities, none of that information and theory was making any headway with practitioners at all, right? And the academics are still locked away in their rooms, having broadly no impact. It's disastrous for them. So there's been this sort of hybrid group that you're part of that have all brought the ideas in, and it's kind of moved into its own semi-practitioner place. That's been great. We've made the thinking on marketing more accessible. And if there's nothing else, that's something.
That's something.
It's something, because you can't rely on training MBAs for 2 years, and they somehow filter this knowledge out, right? You know what I mean? Like it's not a good enough system. So I think the very fact that has that dimension is a good thing. You know what I mean? So, it's not perfect. We're not having a massive impact, but we're having some.
I think it's been a big lesson for us at WARC as well. In that coming into Cannes, you realise that, when there is an entire croisette full of beaches and, earthly delights, if we're going to present effectiveness ideas, we've got to make them entertaining. We've got to make them, interesting and sort of, distinct. Like all the stuff we
talk about,
yeah.
We apply it to ourselves. No, I think that's true. And I think that's been missing a lot from the discussion as well. And maybe what you're also picking up on is things are just getting a bit more fruity, because it is more enjoyable to have a ding-dong every now and again, as long as it stays relatively friendly. You know what I mean? Long may it continue. You know what I mean? The last thing we need is everyone agreeing with each other in wrong ways, which is kind of where we were in the 90s, Everyone was very much in love with brand relationships and brand love, and it was all fun. And everyone had a tattoo of a logo on their arm, and that was what strong brands were. And no one back then was brave enough to stand up and go, I think that's bullshit. And, you'd point again to Byron being able to do that and be laughed at to begin with, but not caring, So there's room for critical thinking. It's how we move forward. We move forward with falsificationism, unfortunately. We don't move forward with everyone being very positive and supportive of each other. We know from the philosophies of science that's not how this game works best. Now, we're not curing cancer either, but, I think it's important that people like me get a real good spanking every now and again on a data point that, I remember it happened to me once, actually. I was banging on about the long and the short of it, and a guy came in from System 1 and said to me, that's not how it works. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, look, the long of it also does the short of it. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. And he got the data out and gave me like sort of a 30-minute spanking. And it was great. That, we need more of that.
Final question.
Yes.
You're Brit, you live in Australia. Who are you supporting in the World Cup?
Oh, no, I'm totally English. I have an English passport in my pocket. I'm
All right. Mark, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Great to catch up with you again. That's all we've got time for today. If you like what you heard, please do follow the WARC Podcast on your podcasting platform of choice. And if you really liked it, please do leave us a review. Until next time, thanks for listening.